Welcome to Week in One, the show that helps you catch up with the most important news and interviews featured on ENCA over the last week. I'm Abigail Visagie. Here's a look at this week's top stories. Umalusi greenlights 2022's Matric exam results. Public schools in coastal areas open this week. If you're a Matric pupil or a parent of one, you probably spent the week nervously anticipating 2022's exam results. Umalusi signed off on the grades but highlighted several irregularities that are being looked into. ENCA's Mangoba Mqunu has more.
It's been a tough 3 years for the class of 2022. They've had to deal with learning throughout the COVID-19 pandemic and increasing rolling blackouts, among many other obstacles. But despite this, they've managed to write their exams, and Quality Assurer Umalusi has given the release of the results the thumbs up.
Having studied all the evidence presented, the Executive Committee of Umalusi Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with regulations pertaining to the conduct, administration and management of the National Senior Certificate Examination. The irregularities identified during the writing and marking of the examinations were not systemic and therefore did not compromise the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2022 National Senior Certificate Examinations.
But the 2022 Matric exams have not been without any irregularities.
According to the reports received from different assessment bodies, different forms of cheating were uncovered in some centers during the examinations. This includes candidates found in possession of crib notes and or cell phones, sharing of answers via WhatsApp groups, imposters found in the examinations rooms. Some answer scripts had different handwritings, etc. Based on the magnitude of the offenses, different sanctions have been meted out against the candidates involved.
Meanwhile, the Basic Education Department says it's still probing the matter.
The investigations are continuing. Of course, some preliminary work has been done. That's why there was this decision to block, because some evidence had been found pointing to some malpractices that would have taken place there. But of course, we'll comply with the decision, we'll block the results as instructed by Umalusi and then continue with the investigations.
Mangoba Mqunu, Pretoria.
Now, staying with education, the new academic year has officially begun for coastal schools, but it's been anything but smooth sailing. There's been growing anger from many parents whose children hadn't been placed by the time doors opened, as well as other burning issues. Our reporters, Aviwa Mtila, Letiwe Mdluli and Ronald Masinda were on the ground to get the story.
Parents have braved the scorching sun in Cape Town, coming out in numbers at various Department of Education district offices. This as they scramble to get placement for their children, either for grade 1 or 8, as the coastal schools reopen on Wednesday.
I applied on time and I applied to 10 schools. As you can see here is the dates, some of the dates on there that I applied for. Timelessly, I applied and all was declined. There was no valid explanation why she wasn't accepted. It's just declined online, and I think it's very sad because I mean, how much she feel now? It's traumatizing for her because all her friends is going to school, knowing that she don't have a school. What will she get a school? Will she stay another year at home?
I did apply in time. I gave in my papers at school in time, and yesterday. No, let us say Thursday I went there to ask them. I didn't receive nothing of them.
Submitted my request on the 19th of March 2022 online, and then I also submitted the required documents, and then I took the hard copies to all 3 schools. However, my daughter is not placed into any of the 3 schools that I applied to. So they asked me to come here for an appeal or to register my daughter again for grade 8. So I'm here for that right now.
The Department of Education says that 99.2% of grade 1 and 8 learners have already been placed in the Western Cape, with 955 learners still needing placements. Aviwa Mtila, Cape Town.
In KZN are preparing to welcome back thousands of pupils on Wednesday, but some schools might not be ready. Schools that were damaged by the floods back in April last year have not been fixed. Brittonwood High School is one of those schools. Classrooms were flooded, forcing the school to find alternative venues so teaching and learning could continue. Almost a year later, the school has still not been repaired. Teachers Union SATU says this is very concerning.
In some of the schools, there's no progress. In fact, nothing has been done. Whilst we appreciate the work by school governing bodies, as you can see, they are dealing with the sports ground here. But talking about the classrooms, the block that was affected, hugely affected by the floods, is still the same. Nothing has been done, but the school had to find its own ways of making sure that they accommodate learners, which may have resulted in overcrowding in classrooms, which is something that affects teaching and learning. And it's important for the department to prioritize the schools that were damaged by those floods.
Other schools, such as Begisisa High School, are dealing with the lack of basic infrastructure. The school has no running water and no toilet facilities for pupils. It's been like this for over 5 years, and parents say they've had enough.
Kwesinye isikhathi baba nenkinga yokuthi basebenzisa ama-toilet ngoba ahlale engcolile and anjeyana njengoba kade niwabona nani nasemaklasini kuwa u-asbestos uyakhuthuka so baze baphathwe imikhuhlane njengoba kade kunama-floods kuwile lapha emaceleni kwangalungiswa.
Our attempts to get answers from the Department of Education in the province have failed. Lethiwe Mdluli, Durban.
That's wrong.
Over 1,200 pupils from Alphendale High were shocked to find their school in a state of disrepair. It's without water and electricity following repeated acts of vandalism. And for now, pupils will have to make do with reduced teaching hours.
Our school was on a continuous basis being vandalized. All cabling, all piping were removed from the school. I'm going to start off just with our hotspot area behind the school, which falls under the Buffalo City municipality's responsibility. That whole area is so overgrown, and it's being identified by both SUPS and by the Education Department as a hotspot area.
The Education Department in the Eastern Cape admits to a few hiccups leading up to the opening of schools in the province.
I think the challenges that are remaining now, I think on the LTSM is just a snag with one manufacturer, but they are finishing up those schools today. It's about 45 schools.
There is still a number of unplaced pupils in the Eastern Cape, but the department has promised to have everyone in class across the province by the end of the month. Ronald Masinda, East London.
And finally, Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga announced the national and provincial matric results of public schools on Thursday night. A detailed technical briefing outlined the obstacles that the class of 2022 faced.
The 2022 NEC exam pass rate has reached 80.1%. The second highest since 2019, which is an improvement of 3.7% from last year. The number of bachelor passes has increased. It's an improvement of 8.9%. The number of diploma passes has improved, so which means there's an improvement to the left and really getting lesser and lesser students passing from the side. But we must state that MEC KZ, and I did tell you when I was with that, there's a Natal surprise. There's a Natal surprise. We must state that Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal did contribute most bachelor passes, an increase of 4.1%.
And coming up after the break, we showcase some of the big interviews our anchors did this week with key newsmakers. Welcome back to Week in One. I'm Abigail Visagie. Now, while quality assurer Umalusi has placed its stamp of approval on this year's Matric results, concerns have been raised about allegations of cheating involving students, teachers and officials. ENCA anchor Masego Ratlaga spoke to Basil Manuel, who is the Executive Director of Teachers Union NAPTOSA.
There's that concern, especially coming from the province like Mpumalanga, where teachers and pupils are being investigated. Many believe that the pupils should be given a second chance because they're still young, and it's the teachers that should be sanctioned. What do you think?
I think it cuts both ways because, for one, let's make it very clear. These teachers are miscreants in the system. They give teachers a bad name. But it's even bigger than that. They are cheapening the entire exit certificate. And if this continues, the exit certificate will be disrespected. People won't see it for its worth, which is an access certificate to so many other things. And we know how much value we put on that. But at the same time, these learners are adults themselves. They are young adults. And whilst I am of the view that we must never punish people permanently, I do believe that these learners also need to bear the brunt of some punishment, because not only were they involved, but some of their parents were involved in this too.
Now, the DA in that province, Mr. Manuel, believes that the schools at which this alleged cheating took place should be named and shamed. Do you agree?
There's no value in tainting children in grade 8 and grade 9 and grade 10. There's no value in destroying the school completely because it was so unfortunate to have a number of miscreants in its number. There are people that must be named and shamed eventually. We must see who these teachers are that have misled our learners. And we must see that justice has been done, that they have been, that the full brunt of the law has been brought to bear on them. Because we can't have this continuing. We are creating a culture from as low as Matric, where people start believing that the way of life must be to cheat to get ahead. And we can't do that. But to destroy an entire school's reputation, because in the next year, who wants to go to a school that has such a bad name?
There are growing calls for the truck company involved in December's Boksburg blast to be held liable. At least 41 people died when a gas tanker exploded after becoming stuck under a too-low bridge on Christmas Eve. ENCA anchor Gareth Edwards spoke to Infinite Group lawyer William Booth.
Give me a sense as to whether or not the company takes any responsibility for what happened, despite that internal audit.
No, definitely not. So the company has itself launched an investigation, has appointed lawyers. I'm one of them. And it also has appointed a forensic investigator. So it is a tragic accident. And it's not a situation where my view is that either the driver or the company is responsible for what happened, as tragic as it is, and the fact that so many lives have been lost. One has to look at the matter holistically. And I think before anybody makes any comment as to where blame should lie, the case has to be fully investigated. The police are busy with that. They obviously will engage their own investigators and they will interview all the witnesses. And from that, that docket, after all the investigation has taken place, has to be submitted to the National Prosecuting Authority, who will then have to make a decision as to whether any person or group of people or any organization is responsible for the deaths of the persons who died in this incident.
What's the tone of the management within the company when they talk about this? Is it a case of, let's get away from this as quickly as possible, or we feel bad, let's see how we can support the community? It's coming across a little bit crass.
Well, look, obviously the company is concerned and has, the greatest of sympathy with the victims' families. And, I think we'll readily engage with them. There would be at some point an engagement with the families and trying to put across that the matter must be looked at, as sad as it all is, and as how horrific the trauma is to all the families, that the matter must be put into perspective.
Now to a story that dominated headlines this week and went viral on social media. Sheba the tigress has been found and euthanized after breaking free of her enclosure in Walkerville, south of Johannesburg. She roamed for over 4 days, attacking a man who is still in hospital. Sally Burdett spoke to Douglas Wallater, Wildlife Protection Senior Manager at the NSPCA.
Can you actually import an endangered animal, a tiger, and bring it to live in an enclosure?
Sally, it's a tricky one, because I think since 2020 there are stronger regulations that, in terms of NEMBA, which regulate tigers being imported into South Africa. But especially in Gauteng, we've got a very unique situation where you would only need an import permit issued by the nature conservation authorities if you're bringing it into the province. So people have got quite clever, and they are breeding tigers in Gauteng, so that enables you to bypass the permitting aspect. So people can quite easily own a tiger within Gauteng with very little regulation to cover it.
I understand she was shot dead. When she's endangered, I mean, surely if you can shoot her with a gun, you can shoot her with a sedative.
Yeah, there was a set of parameters which had to be considered with that. And because whenever you dart an animal, it does take quite a while for the sedation to take effect. You can also get a period of excitement once the darting happens, which could cause more damage, an attack on a domestic animal or on people. So because of the proximity of the people residing there and the other animals, allegedly the decision was taken to shoot her rather than dart her, which is sad, because we've had a lot of people coming to the fore, people like the Aspinall Foundation, who offered helicopters today they offered a helicopter for 4 hours, flying at very low heights to flush her and to sedate her. But unfortunately, it's all in vain now.
Coming up after the break, judgment in the Ramaphosa-Zuma legal showdown. Welcome back to Week in One. I'm Abigail Visagie. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa has won round one of the legal battle brought against him by his predecessor, Jacob Zuma. The High Court in Johannesburg on Monday granted Ramaphosa an interdict to stop Zuma from going ahead with a private prosecution on Thursday. ENCA reporter Maloko Moloto has the details.
On Monday, the High Court in Johannesburg gave President Cyril Ramaphosa a lifeline.
Pending the final determination of Part B, the first respondent is interdicted from taking any further steps to give effect to the nolli prosequi certificates of 21 November 2022 and 6 June 2022, and the summonses issued by the registrar on the 15th and 21st of December 2022, or to pursue the private prosecution under case number 59772 of 2022 against the applicant in any way.
This means the president will not have to stand in the dock on Thursday as Zuma had wanted him to. But while Ramaphosa successfully interdicted Zuma as per Part A of his urgent application, the president still has to convince this court on a date yet to be decided. In Part B, Ramaphosa questions the validity of the non-prosecution certificate which Zuma relied on to privately prosecute the president.
The main case is addressed in relief sought in Part B. It is Part A, which is before us at this time, in which the pertinent issues are, straightforwardly, whether a case is made out to interdict the further proceedings in the envisaged private prosecution, pending a decision on that question in an orderly hearing in Part B, to be set down in due course. Nothing which is stated in this judgment is intended to prejudge the outcome of that hearing in the main controversy.
Zuma accuses Ramaphosa of assisting prosecutor Billy Downer to evade justice by not instituting an inquiry into his conduct. On the other hand, the president argues Zuma's private prosecution against him is an abuse of processes and that it's inspired by ulterior motives. What's now remaining is for the court to rule on the validity and legality of the non-prosecution certificate, and it's that decision that will determine if Zuma is eligible to privately prosecute the president. Moluko Mulot, Johannesburg.
Several community activists, leaders and politicians have been gunned down in Mkhondo, Mpumalanga in recent months, but not a single arrest has been made. The most recent victims were local councillor Sibonelo Mthembu and two of his friends who were gunned down last week. Police Minister Bheki visited bereaved families, and ENCA's senior reporter Sipamandla Koke was there and has the inside track.
It took the deaths of these three ANC members for the police top brass to come to Mkhondo. This is despite long-standing concerns from locals about ongoing political killings in the area. Family members of the deceased say it should have never come to this.
This is a tragedy that we are currently facing as a family, and we'd like to believe that his death is politically motivated, related to political killings.
And while the family prepares to lay their son to rest, nothing's guaranteed.
We can't really mention names, and also we fear for our own lives.
Sizwe Mbingo, also an ANC member, was with his councillor friend when gunmen opened fire on them. He leaves behind 4 young children and siblings.
Kube nazo igameko phambilini ezicishe ifane nalezi. So umalume naye malume Sizwe kanye naye ubhuti Smile lo bekungabantu abazama ukulungiswa la eMkhondo, kwaba ukuthi ke sebadibana nabantu ke abangazwani nendlela eqondile base ke babasusa endleleni.
The police minister and his entourage were met by unhappy community members. They accused Minister Bheki of not keeping his 2018 promise of solving political killings in the area.
We sick and tired babcele lento eyenzekala la Mkhondo ayiphele uma ngaba nikhoni sitsheleni sinikeni amapower wanikeni kithi ezandleni zethu.
Cele concedes his team's been found wanting in cracking murder cases related to political killings in the province.
There are glaring gaps for the fact that as you sit down in the province of the Mpumalanga, there will be 12 dead bodies that are related to this kind of killing, and there's 0 arrests.
And this worries politicians in the province.
What has been reported by members who are alive and even those who have been killed, police have been relatively informed about these threats.
The police minister says he's optimistic his yet to be assembled political killings task team in the province will crack all outstanding murder cases. Sipamandla Koke, Mkhondo, Mpumalanga.
Now we end this week's show on a positive note. Matriculants from private schools are celebrating a staggering 98.42% pass rate this week. Of the pupils who passed, 89.32% received entry to study a degree. 2 schools in Johannesburg are beaming after scoring a perfect 100% pass rate. Pupils from both King David and Saheti schools earned over 200 distinctions between them. ENCA's Mangoba Mqunu reports.
Celebrations have been deafening across Joburg as the class of 2022 finally received their marks. King David High School in Linksfield is among the top achievers with 6 pupils, among the IEB's outstanding achievers.
I'm absolutely over the moon. When I saw my results, it was such a surprise, and I'm incredibly happy.
The results are fantastic. Of our 158 candidates, all achieved university entrance. 1 had a diploma pass, so I'm very proud principal.
The last 3 years haven't been easy, but some managed to outdo the expectations. This pupil scored 100% pass in maths.
I worked consistently. I always tried to do my homework, like I didn't skip homework, and I think it really helped because it took away a lot of the pressure when it came like towards the exam time. I'd already learned a lot of the work through doing the homework, and I think that really helped.
And for me, I think it really was putting in the long hours and just sitting down and saying, you know what, there's a piece of work that you need to get done, there's something you need to do, and just getting through it.
A proud day for parents who could barely contain the excitement. The sky's the limit as these top achievers prepare for the next phase of their education. Manqwaba Mchunu, Johannesburg.
And that's a wrap for this week's edition of Week in One. From myself and the team, have an amazing weekend. And to all the matriculants that have passed their exams, a big congratulations. Take care.